Have you ever looked at, say, a peacock's ridiculously extravagant tail and just thought, how is that even helpful? That can't be good for survival.
Right. It seems like a huge liability.
Exactly. Or maybe you've wondered why we humans put so much effort into, fancy clothes or learning complicated dance moves or even just coming up with a witty line, all to impress someone.
Mm-hmm. The things we do for attraction.
Well, today we're peeling back the layers on one of evolution's most powerful and sometimes surprisingly subtle forces, sexual selection.
Where we take a deep plunge into fascinating topics.
Yeah, we sift through a whole stack of research and distill it down to the key insights for you, giving you that shortcut to being, well, genuinely well-informed.
And today's dive is pretty special.
It really is. We're exploring chapters 8 through 18 of a really remarkable work called A Most Interesting Problem. Now, these chapters, they are entirely focused on understanding the huge and often kind of counterintuitive impact of mate choice on how life evolves.
It's a core mechanism, really.
Our mission here is to show you just how profoundly mate choice drives the biological world. It shapes, well, everything from the most bizarre animal traits you can imagine.
Like truly bizarre sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. All the way to the complex, deeply ingrained human courtship rituals that, let's face it, we all participate in, whether we consciously think about it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually really excited to get into this with you because these ideas, they aren't just like intellectually interesting. They genuinely might change how you look at attraction or beauty or even human nature itself.
And we're aiming to do more than just, list facts. We want to connect the dots between all these diverse observations from, like, the tiny world of cells signaling each other all the way up to the huge, grand displays of big mammals.
Finding the patterns.
Exactly, revealing the underlying patterns and the sort of deep evolutionary logic behind desire. It's not just this basic biological urge you see. It's an incredibly creative force.
Creative, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, it's led to astonishing adaptations and incredible biodiversity all across the tree of life. So hopefully you'll start to see the world and maybe even your own preferences through a fresh evolutionary lens after this.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with the basics. When we think evolution, usually the first thing that pops into our heads is survival of the fittest.
All right, that's a classic phrase.
It brings up images of like the fastest gazelle escaping the lion or the toughest plant surviving a drought. It's all about enduring, living long enough to pass on your genes.
Makes intuitive sense.
But Charles Darwin, in his incredible foresight, he introduced another concept, just as powerful, that works alongside natural selection, and that's sexual selection.
His other big idea, really.
He realized something truly fundamental. It's not just about surviving. Critically, it's about reproducing. You could be the strongest, healthiest, longest-lived creature ever.
His absolute peak of survival.
Right. But if you don't actually find a mate and reproduce, well, evolutionarily speaking, your genes hit a dead end. They don't make it to the next generation. Game over for that lineage.
Yeah, survival is necessary, but it's not sufficient for evolutionary success.
So Darwin laid out two distinct, though intricately connected, mechanisms for how this sexual selection works. And our source material, these chapters, they're just packed with examples.
They really illustrate it beautifully.
The first one is what he called intrasexual competition. Basically, rivalry among members of the same sex, typically males fighting, often literally, for access to mates.
Think of it as like same-sex competition for mating opportunities.
Exactly. Like a high-stakes biological tournament or a championship game where the prize isn't some trophy, it's the chance to reproduce.
The ultimate prize, in evolutionary terms.
The classic example, and it's vividly described in the sources, is stags locking antlers. And we're not talking about gentle nudges here.
No, this is serious combat.
Yeah, these are often violent, incredibly risky battles.
Yeah.
That clash of antlers isn't just posturing. It's a direct test of strength and endurance, where the winner literally gets mating rights over a group of females.
Winner takes all, basically.
And the costs involved are huge and immediate. You've got the risk of severe injury, maybe breaking an antler, getting gored.
Or even death in some cases.
Absolutely. Plus the massive energy drain. A stag in rut might lose a huge chunk of its body weight, just completely exhaust itself.
Making them more vulnerable to predators or just the elements, right?
Exactly. But for the winner, the payoff is enormous. Exclusive access to receptive females, ensuring their genes get passed on. This intense competition is a really powerful evolutionary force.
It shapes traits directly.
It sculpts things like sheer body size, incredible strength, weapons like antlers or horns, even things like a deep, intimidating roar that signals dominance without needing to fight every single time.
It really shows how selection can favor traits that look dangerous from the outside but actually boost reproductive success. And what's truly fascinating here, and I think often missed, is precisely that point you made earlier. Darwin's bold move to actually separate sexual selection from natural selection. That was a massive shift in thinking.
Right before him, it was all about survival utility.
Pretty much. The focus was almost entirely on how traits helped an organism survive in a tough environment. Everything was seen through that lens. How does this help you live longer, find food, avoid being eaten?
But that doesn't explain everything we see.
Exactly. What about all the extravagant beauty in nature? The crazy colors, the elaborate songs, the complex dances, things that don't seem to make an animal better at surviving.
In fact, they often seem to make it harder.
Right. Darwin got that. He understood that these seemingly wasteful or even, maladaptive traits could evolve and persist, even flourish, if they gave an edge in attracting a mate.
That's the key insight.
Yeah, this conceptual split gives us a framework to understand all this dazzling diversity and these often exaggerated, sometimes dangerous features we see everywhere in nature.
So these two mechanisms,
Hmm.
the competition between males
Yeah.
and the other one we'll get to,
Intersexual choice, yeah. They interact in really complex ways, and sometimes they're in direct conflict.
like the peacock again.
The peacock is the perfect example. That magnificent tail helps him win mates, huge reproductive win, but it also makes him slower, way more obvious to predators like leopards.
So a survival liability.
A massive one. That's a classic evolutionary trade-off. A trait that's great for reproduction can be terrible for survival. It just highlights that evolution isn't always about making the perfect survival machine.
It's about balancing these competing pressures.
Exactly. Finding a strategy that works well enough on both fronts, even if it's a bit precarious, it pushes us to ask not just how does this animal survive, but also, crucially, how does it attract a mate and what are the costs involved in doing that?
Okay, so that brings us neatly to the second mechanism Darwin proposed, intersexual choice. This is where one sex, and it's usually females across most of the animal kingdom,
They're not always, but predominantly.
right, predominantly females, actively select their mates based on traits they prefer. And the absolute classic example here is the peahen choosing that male peacock with the incredibly ornate, shimmering, and let's be honest, seriously cumbersome tail.
The ultimate fashion statement, maybe?
Maybe. But this is where that paradox really hits you. That tail isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a huge burden. It's heavy, it takes enormous metabolic energy to grow and keep looking good.
Requires specific nutrients, good health.
And its sheer size and those dazzling colors basically scream, hey predators, lunch is over here, to anything that might want to eat it. From a pure survival angle, it makes the peacock worse off.
Definitely reduces his chances of escape, or just conserving energy.
Yet, it dramatically boosts his reproductive success because the females are actively choosing him, specifically because of that tail. So sexual selection explains traits that seem completely counterintuitive, maybe even a disadvantage for survival.
But are absolutely essential for getting those genes into the next generation. It's nature basically saying, sometimes looking good is more important evolutionarily than just living a long, safe life.
Which leads us into the really fun part, the sheer variety of these sexual signals across the animal kingdom. Chapters 8 through 11 in our source material really showcase this. It's like a kaleidoscope of courtship strategies.
Well, absolutely fascinating diversity.
Let's start with the tundra frogs. These are tiny little guys from Central and South America. The males make this basic sort of monotone whine call to attract females. Pretty simple.
Okay, standard frog call.
But here's the twist. Some males add these little sounds called chucks to the end of their whine. It makes the call much more complex, more musical maybe.
Like adding a flourish.
Exactly. And here's the crucial bit. Female Tungara frogs massively prefer the males with the complex calls, the ones with more chucks. It's like the frog equivalent of a hit song.
They find it irresistible.
Totally. And it's but there's a serious, potentially lethal downside. Those complex calls, the ones the females love, they also act like an acoustic dinner bell for predators.
Oh, wow. Like what kind of predators?
Specifically, these highly specialized frog-eating bats that tune right into those chucks. So the very sound that gets the male the girl also puts him squarely on the menu.
That's a brutal trade-off.
Isn't it? What's so counterintuitive is that this death trap call isn't just maintained by evolution, it's actively preferred by the females. It really forces you to see how strongly evolution can prioritize reproduction, even over basic survival.
The drive to mate is incredibly strong.
It seems like it must be immense, pushing males to literally risk their lives just to get chosen. It's such a clear example of that direct trade-off between survival and reproductive success, all driven by female choice.
Amazing. What else have we got?
Then there are the swordtail fish. These are sleek little freshwater fish, again from Central America. Male swordtails are famous for having these long, sort of blade-like extensions on their tail fins. The sword.
Right, I've seen pictures. Very distinctive.
And those swords, they're not for swimming faster, they're not for fighting other males, they are purely sexual ornaments.
Just for looks.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Female swordtail fish really go for males with these impressive extensions. Scientists have even artificially lengthened them in experiments, and the females prefer the longer ones even more.
Wow, so size matters, for tail swords at least.
Apparently so. It's a really powerful visual signal, a clear indicator of something desirable, guiding mate choice very directly. What's also interesting is that this preference seems to exist even in females of closely related fish species where the males don't naturally have swords.
Oh, really? How does that work?
It suggests there might be a pre-existing sensory bias. Maybe the female's visual systems were already tuned to notice long, trailing things perhaps for spotting predators or prey, and the male swordtails just evolved to tap into that existing preference.
Ah, exploiting a pre-existing bias. Clever.
It really shows how one exaggerated physical trait can become this huge focus for attraction. Okay, my personal favorite, and honestly one of the most mind-blowing examples from these chapters, has to be the bowerbirds.
Ah, yes, the artists of the bird world.
Exactly. Found in Australia and New Guinea. These males don't just build nests. No. They construct these incredibly elaborate structures called bowers. And get this, they are not for nesting.
Purely display structure.
Purely display arenas. They often look like tiny, intricately designed tunnels or avenues made of twigs. And the males collect colorful objects, bright berries, shiny flowers, iridescent beetle wings.
Even human stuff, right? Like bottle caps.
Yeah, bottle caps, bits of glass, plastic, anything colorful or shiny. And they arrange these objects with incredible precision and, you could say, aesthetic flair. Some even paint the inside walls with chewed berry pulp or charcoal mixed with saliva.
That's incredible dedication.
It is. And then the females come along and perform this rigorous, meticulous inspection. They walk through the bower, they look at the decorations, they spend minutes, sometimes hours, just critiquing the whole setup.
Like art critics.
Pretty much.
Sure.
They're not just looking at the male himself. They seem to be judging his construction skills, his decorating sense, maybe even his cognitive abilities.
What could it signal? Intelligence, resourcefulness?
Possibly all of that. Creativity, the ability to find rare objects, maybe cognitive planning to build something so complex, or just sheer persistence and dedication. It's an amazing case where a trait that isn't even part of the male's body is central to mate choice. Makes you wonder if art itself has roots in this kind of display.
A fascinating thought. And any others?
One more quick one. Fireflies. We see them flashing in the summer, right? Well, those aren't just random flashes. Each species of firefly has its own unique species-specific flash pattern.
It's like a secret code.
Exactly like a secret code. A precise sequence of blinks, pauses, flight patterns, even color variations. Males flash their specific code. Females hidden nearby respond with their species-specific pattern, and only if the patterns match perfectly does mating happen.
So it prevents mating between different species.
Precisely. It acts as a crucial reproductive isolation barrier. Imagine the confusion if all fireflies flash the same way. It really highlights how critical accurate signaling is, not just for attracting any mate, but for ensuring you attract the right mate from your own species, maintaining that species integrity.
These examples are fantastic. And if we try to connect them, pull back to the bigger picture, they really drive home how the specific environment, the ecology, like those frog-eating bats, or the visual conditions for the fish.
Right, the context matters hugely.
And also those pre-existing sensory biases you mentioned with the swordtails. They all profoundly shape how these unique signals evolve. Each species, in its own little world with its own sensory tools, finds its own specific, often ingenious solution to the problem of attracting a mate.
Like an evolutionary design challenge.
Exactly, where the rules are set by the environment and the senses of the receiver. And this leads to just wildly different strategies, but they're all effective in their own context.
So much variety.
Just immense variability in the pressures and the outcomes across different groups. You've got physical ornaments like the swordtail sword, constructions like the bowerbird's art project, precise sounds like the frog's calls, complex light shows like the fireflies.
All shaped by this interplay.
Yeah, a complex interplay between the environment and the biology of the species itself. It hammers home that there's no single best way to attract a mate. It's always dynamic, always evolving, tailored to specific niches, constantly being fine-tuned.
These aren't just random quirks.
Not at all. They're highly evolved, sophisticated communication systems honed over vast stretches of time to convey really crucial information about a potential partner.
Okay, so we've looked at the signals themselves, the flashy displays the males put on. But what about the other side of the coin? How do these preferences actually arise in the first place? Why do females, or whichever sex is choosing, prefer these signals and not others?
Right, moving from the signal to the receiver's perception.
Yeah, exactly. Chapters 12 and 13 really dig into this, exploring the sort of brain's blueprint for desire. Is it just random, or is there something deeper, maybe hardwired going on?
And a key concept here is sensory bias.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, imagine this. Before a male ever evolved some elaborate display, the female, the choosing sex, might already have a built-in neural preference, a kind of taste for certain things. And this preference might have nothing to do with mating initially.
How so?
It could just be a byproduct of her sensory system evolving for other tasks, like maybe her eyes are really good at spotting the color red because it helps her find ripe fruit to eat.
Okay, so a preference for red exists for foraging reasons.
Exactly. Or maybe her ears are tuned to a specific sound frequency because it helps her detect predators rustling in the leaves. These are pre-existing biases, part of her general toolkit for survival, not originally about finding a mate.
Got it. So how does that link to mate choice?
Well, here's the ingenious part. If a male then happens to evolve a trait, maybe a mutation gives him a small red patch that hits this pre-existing sensory preference.
He gets noticed more.
He gets noticed more. He can essentially exploit that bias. It's like a sensory trap, a shortcut to getting the female's attention. He isn't necessarily signaling anything about his quality at first, just doing something her brain is already wired to find appealing.
So the attraction isn't initially about fitness, just resonance with the existing sensory system.
Exactly. That female bird tuned to spot red berries might suddenly find a male with a bright red feather patch incredibly striking. The red itself isn't a direct sign of good genes initially, but the male has stumbled onto a way to hijack her attention using her existing neural setup.
That's a fascinating way evolution can work, sort of repurposing things.
It really is. And this idea of sensory bias leads into this wider field called receiver psychology.
Okay, what's that about?
It's basically studying how the brains and sensory systems of the choosing sex actually respond to the signals they receive. By looking at their neural architecture, their perceptual limits, their cognitive processing, researchers can start to understand why certain kinds of traits evolve again and again in totally different species.
Getting inside the mind of the chooser.
Yeah, or at least understanding the mechanics of their perception. For example, if we understand how a frog's ear is physically built, which frequencies it responds to best, it helps explain why male frogs might evolve calls pitched at exactly those frequencies.
It shows the signal and the receiver are intimately linked.
Deeply linked. Sexual selection isn't just about the outward show, it's fundamentally tied to the perception, the neurology, the psychology of the one doing the choosing. It's this whole hidden landscape of attraction within the brain.
So this really does raise that provocative question you hinted at. Is beauty essentially just a trick of the brain?
Well, sensory bias suggests there's often a deep biological, maybe even neurological basis for what we find attractive. It's not necessarily arbitrary or just learned culturally. There might be underlying mechanisms in our perceptual systems shaping those initial gut reactions.
Doesn't mean culture plays no role, of course.
No, absolutely not. Culture layers on top, shapes specifics, creates meanings. But that initial pull, that first spark of attraction, might often be rooted much deeper in our sensory biology.
And there's a feedback loop, right, between the signal and the preference.
Exactly. That's the really profound part. Preferences drive signals to evolve. Males develop traits that appeal, but then as signals get more exaggerated or refined, they can actually push the evolution of the preference itself.
How does that work?
Imagine, female fish evolve a slight preference for brighter fins. Males with slightly brighter fins get chosen more often, their genes spread. But then, maybe all the males start getting brighter. Now, the females might evolve even better vision or a stronger preference to tell the difference between bright and really bright.
Constantly raising the bar.
Exactly. It's an escalating arms race of beauty and perception. This dynamic interplay means that what we perceive as beautiful or desirable isn't just a whim, it's often rooted in this deep, co-evolutionary dance between signal and receiver, tied to that ancestral neural wiring. Culture shapes the expression, for sure, but the underlying predispositions can be incredibly powerful and ancient.
Okay, building on that, let's get into a really crucial concept from chapters 14 to 15. This idea of honest signaling. This helps explain why these lavish, costly, sometimes dangerous displays actually work. If any male could just fake looking good, why would females trust the signal?
Right, what keeps the system from collapsing into deception?
Exactly. So, what makes a signal honest? The core idea is that it reliably indicates the quality of the signaler, because it is genuinely costly to produce or maintain. That cost is the guarantee.
The handicap principle, essentially.
Precisely. Let's dig into why these traits are costly, because it's not always just about energy. Take a bird with super bright iridescent feathers. To make those colors, he needs more than just the right genes. He needs specific, often rare nutrients from his diet, like carotenoids.
So it signals good foraging ability, access to resources.
Yes, and then maintaining that plumage, keeping it clean, free of parasites, perfectly arranged that takes energy and a strong immune system. Or think about a complex bird song, or those Tungara frog chucks.
Takes a lot of energy to sing for hours.
Huge energy expenditure, but also brain power, right?
Yeah.
Learning the song, remembering it, performing it accurately, that signals cognitive ability. And then the really big ornaments, like the peacock's tail.
We keep coming back to the peacock.
He's the poster child. It's not just heavy and energy draining. It physically makes him worse at flying or running away. It makes him way more visible to predators. It might even compromise his immune system because so many resources go into making it. He's literally carrying a huge handicap.
A bigger, slower, more vulnerable target.
Exactly. And the genius of this costly signaling, or handicap principle, is that only individuals who are genuinely high-quality good genes, robust health, great at finding food, can actually afford to produce and maintain such costly traits and still survive.
Low-quality individuals just can't pull it off.
They can't fake it convincingly without suffering serious consequences. If you can grow that enormous dazzling tail and still manage to dodge predators, fight off diseases, and find enough food, well, that's a pretty powerful, honest statement about your underlying fitness.
So the cost isn't a flaw in the signal.
The cost is the signal. It's the feature that guarantees honesty. It proves the signaler has the extra quality needed to overcome such a burden.
That makes a lot of sense.
Now, let's bridge this over to us, to human behavior. We can see really fascinating parallels in our own courtship displays. Things that function like modern peacock tails, signaling quality through costly actions.
Like what, for example?
Well, think about elaborate gifts. They signal wealth, sure, but also generosity, maybe commitment resources that could benefit a partner and potential offspring, or complex dance moves or impressive athletic skill displayed during courtship.
Signaling physical health and coordination.
Exactly. Physical prowess, coordination, vitality traits that were definitely important in our evolutionary past for survival and providing. And then there are the more cognitive displays.
Like music or storytelling.
Yes. Think about singing well, playing an instrument, telling a captivating story, or even having a great sense of humor, like being really witty. These are powerful signals of creativity, intelligence, social skills.
Things that require brain power and practice.
Right. Someone who can weave a great story shows memory, understanding of people, creativity. Someone consistently funny shows quick thinking, cognitive flexibility. These aren't easy things to do well. They often require years of practice, natural talent, significant effort, making them pretty reliable, costly signals of underlying mental and social quality. Hard to fake convincingly night after night.
And what's really key here, thinking about the evolutionary side, is the stability of these honest signals. They absolutely must impose real costs, whether in energy, resources, risk, or time, to remain reliable indicators.
Because if they were easy to fake,
Then everyone would do it. Low-quality individuals would mimic the signal without having the underlying quality. And pretty soon, the choosing sex, the females, usually would just stop paying attention to that signal altogether. It wouldn't tell them anything useful anymore. It would just be noise.
so the cost maintains the signal's value.
Precisely. The cost is what keeps the whole system honest and prevents widespread cheating. It ensures the signals remain trustworthy advertisements of an individual's actual worth as a potential mate.
like a biological luxury good.
That's a great analogy. You see something incredibly expensive, something few can afford, and you infer a certain level of underlying resources or success. Similarly, when a female animal sees a male pulling off a really impressive, costly display.
She infers good genes, good health, ability to get resources.
Exactly. She infers those things because it would be impossible, or at least incredibly difficult and risky, for a weaker, lower quality individual to manage the same feat. It's this profound communication system built on investment and risk, conveying reliable, critical information.
It really underscores that idea that sometimes these huge, flashy displays are actually the most honest things out there. You have to spend big to win big.
In the evolutionary game, yeah. Extravagance can equal honesty.
Okay, so now let's really unpack this when it comes to us. Let's apply these principles directly to humans, drawing from chapters 16 and 17, which really get into human courtship and our ideas about beauty. It's kind of amazing how many of these concepts from frogs and birds resonate with our own species.
It really does shape our desires, our bodies, our behaviors.
So first off, let's talk physical traits. One thing that comes up again and again across different cultures is a preference for symmetry.
Meaning both sides of the face or body matching up well.
Exactly. Bilateral symmetry seems to be linked to developmental stability. It suggests you had good genes and developed smoothly, despite any environmental challenges or potential mutations during growth.
Whereas asymmetry might indicate underlying problems.
It can be a subtle sign of developmental stress, genetic issues, or poor health during crucial periods. So finding symmetry attractive isn't just some random aesthetic preference. It could be an evolved tendency to favor partners with good genes and robust health, a visual shortcut.
Makes sense. What else?
Then we have sexually dimorphic features. These are the typical physical differences between male and female bodies and faces that really emerge around puberty.
Signaling maturity and fertility.
Right. For guys, think maybe a more angular jaw, broader shoulders, that V-shaped torso. Maybe a deeper voice traits often linked to testosterone levels, signaling male maturity and maybe strength.
And for women,
For women, things like softer facial features, maybe a certain waist-to-hip ratio associated with fertility, particular fat distributions, clear skin cues that can signal estrogen levels, reproductive readiness, and health. These aren't just random differences. They seem to be honest signals related to hormones and peak reproductive potential.
and youth cues.
Yeah, youth cues are big too. Traits we associate with youth and vitality like clear, smooth skin, bright eyes, maybe full hair, energetic movement. These are widely seen as attractive, especially in females, likely because they signal peak fertility and reproductive potential. It's all about signaling the best chance for successful reproduction.
So our physical preferences aren't arbitrary. They often tap into these reliable indicators of health and fertility.
Seems that way. But it's not just physical. Our behavioral displays are just as important and incredibly varied. Take humor.
Humor as a sexual signal. Interesting.
Yeah. Think about it. Someone who can genuinely make you laugh consistently is demonstrating some pretty impressive cognitive skills. Mental flexibility, quick thinking, understanding social cues, creativity.
Qualities that suggest intelligence and adaptability.
Right. That shows they can process things quickly, make novel connections, navigate social situations well. Maybe implies they'd be a good partner, maybe a good parent, adaptable, smart. Then there's storytelling.
Another cognitive display.
Definitely. Being able to weave a compelling story signals creativity, intelligence, again, a good memory, plus a sophisticated grasp of human emotions and social dynamics. Holding attention, conveying complex ideas, maybe even passing on useful information or cultural knowledge.
And music.
Music is huge.
Right.
Whether playing an instrument, singing, composing, it's an incredibly complex display. It signals cognitive abilities, fine motor coordination, dedication, they think of the practice time, emotional depth.
It really combines a lot of different skills.
It does. All these things, humor, storytelling, musicality, are costly signals of underlying quality. They take time, effort, often innate talent to do well. They're hard to fake effectively.
And what about things like fashion or makeup, cultural ornaments?
Great point. While they aren't purely biological, things like clothing, jewelry, cosmetics, elaborate hairstyles, they absolutely function as performance enhancers in human mate choice. Kind of like the bowerbird decorating his bower.
How so?
Well, clothing can signal status, wealth, belonging to a certain group, creativity, personal expression. Expensive or well-cared-for clothes suggest resources and attention to detail. Jewelry can signal wealth, social standing, maybe commitment. Cosmetics can enhance those youth cues, highlight desirable features like symmetry, or just signal good grooming and health.
So they amplify or signal traits linked to those deeper biological drives.
Exactly. They're culturally mediated ways to advertise qualities like resources, status, health, creativity. Our species' unique way of enhancing the signals, building on the biological foundation with social and artistic layers. Our own versions of peacock tails and bowers.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, one of the really compelling things highlighted in these chapters is how consistent many of these human preferences seem to be across really diverse cultures.
Even cultures that develop completely separately.
Yeah. While the specifics definitely vary, like what style of clothing is in, or which exact facial feature is emphasized the underlying attraction to things like symmetry, cues of health and youth, intelligence, kindness, creativity, resources, those seem to pop up almost universally.
Suggesting a shared evolutionary heritage.
It strongly points that way. It suggests these preferences are deeply rooted in our biology, shaped by evolution long before specific cultures arose. It's not just about what's considered beautiful here and now, but about signals that have been evolutionarily relevant for a very long time.
So culture interacts with biology.
Exactly. It's this fascinating interplay. We have these innate predispositions honed over millennia. Culture then shapes how they're expressed, maybe amplifies certain aspects, adds layers of meaning, even creates new rules for display. But it doesn't just wipe the biological slate clean.
The core drivers often remain.
They often seem to, which might be why, people from vastly different backgrounds can still often appreciate a skillful performance or recognize cues of health or find similar things witty or creative. They're tapping into those deeper, evolutionarily significant signals. It's a testament to just how profoundly sexual selection has shaped us.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. What does this mean for the grand story of human evolution? As we wrap up with Chapter 18, looking at sexual selection's long-term impact, it really feels like it's been a major architect of who we are.
Not just influencing attraction today, but literally sculpting our species over millennia.
Right. First, it's directly influenced our physical morphology, our actual shape. Not just faces and bodies, but maybe overall proportions, the way we lost most of our body hair, maybe even our upright stance, our vocal cords, allowing speech and song.
Traits that distinguish us from other primates.
Exactly. Over countless generations, if there was a consistent preference for mates showing certain physical signs of health, fertility, or maybe even cooperation or parenting ability reflected in their physique, that acts as a powerful selective force guiding how our bodies evolved.
So why we look the way we do might be partly due to ancestral mate choices.
It's a compelling argument. Every feature could potentially hold an echo of those choices. But maybe even more profound and less obvious is the idea that sexual selection was a major driver of our cognitive evolution.
Her big brains.
Our big brains. Think about it.
Yeah.
If, generation after generation, our ancestors preferred mates who were just a bit smarter, more creative, better communicators, better problem solvers.
Then those traits would be strongly favored.
Strongly favored and passed on. This constant preference for cognitive traits, intelligence, wit, artistry, language skills, could have been a powerful engine pushing our brains to become larger and more complex.
Like an intellectual arms race driven by mate choice.
Kind of. The ability to make sophisticated tools, create symbolic art, tell complex stories, plan for the future. Maybe these weren't just for survival. Maybe they were also partly ways to show off a superior mind to attract a desirable mate. Our intelligence itself could be, in part, a magnificent mating display.
That's a mind-bending thought.
Isn't it? And finally, sexual selection could have played a key role in facilitating cultural complexity. If attracting the best mates requires increasingly impressive displays over time.
Simple grunts aren't enough anymore.
Right. You need better stories, more intricate art, more complex music, more sophisticated social rituals, maybe even technological innovations used in display. This creates a positive feedback loop.
Where the need to impress drives cultural development.
Plausibly, yes. The escalating need to showcase superior qualities, intelligence, skill, creativity, status through cultural means could have directly spurred the development of everything from early cave paintings and music to modern fashion, literature, technology, and our complex social systems. Culture becomes the arena for this evolutionary arms race of allure.
So this really gets back to Darwin's point, doesn't it? You quoted it earlier, that sexual selection is the chief cause of modified structures. These chapters really seem to back that up, showing just how pervasive its influence might be.
It's not just a minor evolutionary force.
Not at all. It seems to be a primary engine of change, constantly shaping and refining life. And the implication is staggering. How much of what we value as uniquely human, our art, music, storytelling, complex societies, maybe even our capacity for empathy and abstract thought, could actually be, in large part, a magnificent consequence of sexual selection. Our brains, our bodies, our cultures, they all seem to bear these subtle but maybe unmistakable fingerprints left by millions of years of choices made by our ancestors in this grand, ongoing dance of desire. It really suggests our highest capacities might have been honed not just by the cold calculus of survival, but also by the deeply felt aesthetic drive to attract a mate.
So as we wrap up, we've journeyed through chapters 8 to 18 of A Most Interesting Problem. And I really hope it's become clear just how incredibly powerful and pervasive sexual selection really is.
It touches almost everything.
It really does. We've seen how mate choice drives biodiversity, from the Tangira frog's risky calls to the bowerbird's amazing constructions, and how it deeply influences our own human sense of beauty, our behaviors, maybe even the very structure of our minds.
Darwin's idea has really blossomed.
It truly has. It's become this rich, vibrant field of science that's constantly uncovering more about the biological roots of desire, beauty, and competition right across the spectrum of life. It's a silent, powerful force, always at work.
And it definitely prompts you to look at the world and maybe ourselves a bit differently, with a renewed sense of wonder, perhaps, and maybe a bit more understanding of why we find certain things appealing. The next time you see a bird's bright colors or hear an intricate song, or even just find yourself drawn to certain qualities in another person, it's worth remembering you're probably witnessing the echoes of this incredibly long and powerful evolutionary history.
Millions of years of choices.
Exactly. It's likely not just your personal taste at play, but these deep biological and psychological mechanisms whispering to us from our ancient past.
Show, let's go, open up your mind and grow. Facts and stories, things you never know. Every episode, we light the glow. Step into the world of Mad Show. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mash Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow. New ideas begin to shine. Breaking limits, crossing lines. Every moment feels divine. In the world of Mash Show time. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mash Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow.